agenda, but let's get right to it. Modifications and changes to the agenda. Are there any additions or anything? No, nobody's got any. Okay. Next up, public comment. Nobody here from the public tonight, right? No? Okay. Review and approval for the minutes, October 8th, 2019. Everybody look those over. You find any errors or admissions? So I need a motion to accept the minutes for October 8th. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next up, we have Northwest Access Television contract request.
Yeah, so we've got Elizabeth Malone here, who's the executive director of Northwest Access TV. You'll find in your packets a letter from Elizabeth along with a draft of contract. Elizabeth, if you read the letter, has a proposal to make to you guys this evening based on some funding challenges that they've come up across, and I'll let you speak.
So as I mentioned in the letter, and maybe you read in the messenger last month, the FCC is changing some regulations, and we're starting to see the impact on the local level. I think we're all probably familiar with the decisions get made on the federal level, and then we're left at the local level to figure out how to continue services that people have become used to, despite those changes. So last year we lost 8% of our revenue that we were expecting and anticipating, and we expect another decrease in 2020 and 2021. So what we're doing is we don't want to change the services that we provide to people. We want to be able to continue to provide the same services and hopefully grow some more services as well. And so we've come out to the boards that we serve to ask if they'd be willing to help support us on a per capita basis to help offset some of those funding losses. One big change that we'll be adding in 2020 is we'll have all of our boards back up on YouTube. I know originally you were on YouTube as kind of an introductory offer sort of thing, but going forward we are going to put all the boards up on YouTube so that everyone has access to see the meetings at any time of day. Because we really find that, yes, they're on channel 16 several times every week, but only, I think Enosburg only has like around 300 subscribers, homes that have cable. So being on YouTube just increases the number of people to almost everyone who has internet at home to be able to view those meetings. So the amount that we would ask, again, this is based on per capita for the village, is $665. The total that it costs for us to record the meetings is up over $8,000. So this is just a small percentage, and we know that everyone is doing the best for taxpayers, and we don't want to ask for more than we need. So that's why we're just asking for a small amount. And we're talking about meetings tonight, but you may have seen on Facebook, we also record and stream live lots of high school sports, basketball particularly. It's very popular from Enosburg. And we have thousands of people that see those games every year. So it's a little bit about us. Any questions?
So that would be an annual contribution?
Yes. Yeah, unless things change to our benefit, then certainly
Are
we
we
would.
paying anything now?
No.
No.
But one thing I would point out, though, which is distinctly different, the way that Elizabeth wanted to present this and set this up to you guys, as opposed to a traditional donation, is that she's not actually proposing that you or the Village of Enosburg Falls give a donation to Northwest Access Television. She's asking you to enter into a contract with them. So it's a little different.
So we're going to be billed for this?
Right.
A portion, yeah.
But do you understand the difference? Elizabeth and I had a discussion about, how historically the village has not accepted requests for donations from outside private sources that historically, the town of Enosburg has taken those kinds of requests because of the equity issues to town and village taxpayers. And so it was decided a long time ago that, you know, those kinds of requests from private outside sources would go to the town as opposed to the village, so that, you know, people that live in the village or have businesses in the village aren't paying multiple times for the same request, or paying an unfair portion of the request. So taking that into consideration, she decided to not make this an actual donation request, but asking you to enter into a contract with Northwest Access. So just want to point that out to you.
So how's the town, they're going to be billed the same way? Or?
Yeah, so it's a per capita basis. So, and we're doing it the same for Swanton Village and Swanton Town as well, because we do provide service to each of the boards. And I'll be meeting with them next month.
Are the residents of the village counted in your per capita numbers for the town?
Yes, I did it calculated.
What's that?
So you're still going to run into the same issue, but this is how Elizabeth decided she wanted to present it. Asking you, rather than going to a public vote at annual meeting, which is, you know, normally what would happen on a request for a donation to either, you know, the town or the village for something like this, she's asking you to enter directly into a contract with her for services, or not her, but Northwest Access Television. And she's going to do the same with the town of Enosburg.
But the village would be, well, not really paying twice for it, but paying the town grand list and town, or the village tax. The village.
Yeah, if she's also planning on going to the town, yeah, you're gonna have the same equity issue if the town accepts that, that contract request, where you'll have village residents and businesses paying, in this case, we're calling it a contract, it's not a donation, we're entering into a contract, but you will still have the same equity issue. You'll have village residents and businesses paying 100% of the contract for the village, and then 50% of the contract for the town. That is the case, that's what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't the town do the, if it's going to happen, do the town, it all goes through the town. If it was in the general fund, everybody still pay.
Yeah,
Is that something?
you can propose that to Elizabeth.
See, some of the village residents pay into the general fund, town general fund for certain fire protection. And I didn't know if this would be one of them cases where,
I guess the difference is that as a village resident, you have access to both the village meetings and the town meetings.
Right.
They're two sets of services that are provided by Northwest Access.
Yeah, and I, sorry, go ahead.
Any resident would have access to any municipality meeting to this, right?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and I know that we really brought in the per capita idea for fairness, but I know that with the villages and towns, it does feel like we're double billing. But it is truly, it's service to each of the boards, and it's a portion of the cost of that service.
So would this be a yearly contract, or not 3 years, not 5 years, just every year?
Yeah, so Jonathan and I spoke a little bit about that, and for now, because the coming year is a little uncertain, we're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop on how the funding will be affected. I feel like in a year's time, so around October 2020, I'll understand what we're looking at, and so at that point, we could look at more like a 3 or 5 year contract. But for this year, I just feel like I had to offer a 1-year contract until we have that certainty of what the future looks like and we can make those plans.
Have you spoken with anybody from the town?
Not on this issue, no.
What do we think? Any other thoughts or questions? You guys want to try a year and see how it goes, or take a minute and think about it? Talk about it next meeting, or what do you guys want to do?
Well, I was just wondering if we should talk with the town, somebody should. John should, or somebody.
Were you scheduled on their meeting
Well-
last night?
No, we're going to be on the November 4th.
I don't know what it would do for for me to talk to the town. I mean, if you want to propose to Northwest Access Television that they do one contract through the town, you can propose that to her, and that'll be up to Northwest Access Television to decide whether they want to take that route or not. Elizabeth, have you spoken to the town yet about entering into a contract?
No, that we're gonna do that on November, the 4th.
So you haven't mentioned it to them at all, or
Yes, sent a letter.
you mentioned it to
email,
them,
yeah.
but you haven't had a discussion with them?
Right.
Did they give you any feedback just in your brief conversation, or no?
My guess is they may, and every board is likely to do this, is to try and turn it into a donation that, goes before the people as opposed to,
As opposed to a contract?
yeah. And that,
Okay. So they may end up, sounds like Elizabeth is saying, they maybe aren't interested in doing a contract. They want to do it as a traditional donation, which means it'd be voted at annual meetings. So just keep in mind, one, if you did decide to go the route it sounds like you're thinking about, Guy, and you asked Elizabeth to wrap these services into the town's donation, if that's how they did it, and it was not approved, then I'm presuming then that would mean that the village and the town would no longer have television coverage.
Okay.
oh, well, we won't go that far. Like that's not what we want to do, is to stop recording these meetings. We'll still
You'd
be
find a
here.
way to make it work somehow.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It means that other services get cut, things like, high school sports, it becomes a little harder to cover. But we think that recording government meetings is a community service, and we think it's really important to continue that service. So honestly, we will continue to do it. We'll still find a way to do it. But we're just asking for some community support to continue that work. And I know we can do it for the next year, but going forward beyond that next year, that may be when we have to make harder decisions about what we can continue to do.
Does that answer any of your concerns? It's up to you guys, to decide.
So in your contract, you're asking for what?
For $665 of
Okay.
support.
So that would be an annual, at least for now, that would be 1 year, and then the following year, depending on what her budgetary concerns were, or challenges were, she would come back the following year with another request, maybe more, maybe less.
But you're saying $665 for the year, and here it says it costs you $338 per meeting.
Yeah. So we're really only asking for a small portion of what it costs to
Okay,
provide the
okay.
service.
I would say we approve this.
You want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion, we approve this. $665.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passed. So when would you wanna do this, like, January 1st, have it a yearly
think
contract?
That's what makes the most sense for your budget.
Yeah, we talked about doing it on a calendar year because that's how we don't run on a fiscal year. We run on a calendar year. As it turns out, so does Northwest Access Television, so it works better for both of us to go on a calendar year.
Yep. I think it's important for people to see what's going on, if they can't make it in,
Oh,
so
yeah.
keeps us honest, right? Keeps us honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Well, thank you so much, I appreciate that.
thank you. Alrighty, up next we have Enosburg Business Association Holiday Event Request. Hi, Sean.
Hi. It's Christmas.
Already?
Yes, the Hallmark Christmas movies are starting this week, so, I'm here to talk about Christmas in Enosburg.
Are you watching all night long now, Sean?
I am not. I refuse to watch them.
Don't lie.
No, I will tape them, but I
Oh, you're
refuse to watch
taping
them.
it, okay.
Well, you don't want to miss the premieres, Jonathan.
Yeah.
They'll just be shown 10 more times before Christmas.
Right.
So I apologize, you're just getting these tonight. I'm basically here just to ask for same thing we've done the last couple of years. To light up the trees in Lincoln Park. And I know that you guys are aware that the Lions are doing a huge thing for us as far as the lighting infrastructure. It's super exciting. I'm working with Seth Hungerford again and his class to help actually put the lights up. We're hoping with your approval to put the lights up on November 6th. We want to get them up sooner than later. We won't need to actually turn power on until closer to the event. I would work with Dave Stetson to figure out exactly when he's gonna start hooking the power up and testing things and stuff like that. I'm also gonna check in with Rick Green for a couple different things. I don't know if he has, we've always hung the lights with ladders, and I don't know if he has any kind of a small lift or something that would not obviously damage the grass or anything like that. That we might be able to do something a little better in the trees than what we can reach or do with ladders. So that's a question, if that's even acceptable, if you want me to stick to ladders. And then, of course, to hold the parade that night, the holiday light parade, work with the sheriff's department and the Lions as well. Have committed to helping a little bit more with traffic control. Same route, nothing different, leaving, coming off Dickinson, going down by Parkside, taking a right onto Missisquoi, just kind of going around the park that way. I'm gonna try and slow the parade down a little bit this year. They were a little speedy last year. And hopefully we'll have a few more entries. And then at the end of the parade, we'll light up the park with Santa, like we always do. And then Winterfest before the parade. So a couple vendors on the park, nothing crazy last year. Last couple of years, we've had the kettle corn guy, Kelly Jarvis has sold cookies and baked goods. The food shelf, we had a little, try to keep it like if somebody wants to raise money for, the food shelf sold hot dogs last year. So again, nothing crazy with vendors, not filling the park or anything, but just a few. And then we have Chris and Erica, have you heard of them? Lined up to provide music before the parade starts. Last year they set up a stage across the street on the cemetery side, and they performed music. So that's the extent of the permits and requests that I need. Any questions for me?
Is Jim gonna have his lift again this year to hang lights too?
So he used the lift last year to hang the lights strictly across the street on the cemetery side. We haven't decided if we're going to do those trees yet. Like I said, when I was thinking lift, obviously to me it's important to not, you can't tear up the grass or anything like that. So I meant to get in to see Rick today before I came to see what he had, thoughts that he had. But I'd be curious if you had ideas. The ladders are okay, but you can only get so high with a 10-foot ladder.
How do they get up on that one across the road on the park?
Yeah, this lift.
Use a lift on that one.
Which tree?
The big giant one.
Oh, the pine tree?
Yeah.
That Ben on
yeah.
the Masonic Hall. So that is Ben's tree from the Flying Disc, and Rick supplies a lift
Oh.
that he comes in and maybe tweak the lights and add lights, and
But
so
the,
that lift comes from Rick Green.
but the lights in front of the cemetery,
Those were new last year.
yeah,
I don't know if we're gonna do those again this year. They were a nice addition, but power wasn't good for them. They didn't stay on
the
really.
lights are going up,
Yeah, I know. They look kind of funny.
yeah.
I wasn't there, but they were, So I'm not sure what we're doing there this year.
I just want to say that the trees are lit on the side of the street, the
Yeah.
backside had nothing.
I know, yeah.
Those people in the cemetery,
Yeah, they didn't want the lights on that side. They
Yes.
voted against it.
I know. I got a few comments about those.
they don't have infants.
No.
So I'm not sure what we're gonna do there with those. Maybe not do anything with them.
So we need a motion for this?
Oh, motion.
Second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Permit carries.
Is the village gonna put in a float for the parade? You should decorate one of your light trucks.
Hey, that makes sense.
We could do that.
Huh?
That
Just
makes
a
sense.
thought. Just a thought.
What's the motion?
It'll be just their luck, we'll have a big storm right before and they'll have to take all the lights
Yeah.
off to go use it.
It would be just our luck.
Or one of your snow plows. I'm just kidding.
Right.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. So as far as the lifts and everything, you guys trust me to make,
Use your own judgment.
use my
I
judgment?
guess.
Okay. Obviously, I don't wanna see the park torn up, so.
If you get stuck, call a record. If you get stuck, call a record.
Okay, perfect. Do you have a lift?
I don't, no,
No.
no.
I tell people my advice is free, but if it don't work, I don't wanna hear about it.
Well, I was walking through this morning and I was kinda like, okay, if we were just on the sidewalks, where could we reach, but. So anyway, I'll go see Rick and see what he says and,
He doesn't run helicopters, does he?
oh, that's a good idea. Or journal, doing that, I can't. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we
As
have,
far as the lift, depends on the operator driving it, running it.
Right, yeah. In the past, Rick has, not only donated the lift, but manpower,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is nice, so,
Yeah.
yeah. I have not taken a crash course in lift.
Uh-huh.
I've not learned how to drive a lift yet. Although I'm thinking I might not.
all right, up next, we have Parks Use Policy Draft.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
I don't think, there's that $1,000 for lights in the budget. I don't think we're going to need anything this year. As far as that goes, we still have, the lights from last year that seem to be in good condition. And with the Lions donating all of that infrastructure, we may not need that, so.
Okay, so when we're doing budgeting, which is coming up, should we not put an item in there for additional lighting?
I would say if we don't, it's up to you guys, but if we don't need to use it, why, I don't know, I'll leave that up to you, but I think,
Since that was an appropriation, we'll be reserving the
Right, it'll
dollars
sit
this
there,
year that will
right?
carry over and be
Yeah.
Right.
available.
so I would say I wouldn't say you need to add it in again.
Okay,
Especially with, the Lions helping with that and having the lights that we have and not having to purchase any. I don't think, so we should be fine. If that's sitting there, potentially if we need something next year, then we'll come to you for that.
Mary Ann Mercy said some reefs were not used last year that they put on the street.
Oh, yeah?
And she was proposing at one of the meetings that she was here that the fence in front of the cemetery, that if a couple of the reeves would be put on that fence.
Yeah, I just don't, yeah, I mean, we can certainly tie them in somehow. That's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah. We'd have to figure out how to tie them into everything, but
Yeah.
I guess if there's wreaths, when they get put up that are left over, or if you somebody just let me know how many or what have you. If you go there.
If you want to use
go-
them, I mean, that's.
Yeah, no, I mean, they certainly look nice, so, yeah. Or on the bandstand, or
Yeah.
I'm trying not to use any power in the bandstand this year. I still would like to put lights on it, but not have to plug anything into the bandstand.
I also want to say Mary Ann said the park looked so beautiful. She didn't think those lights across the street helped it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know, I got lots of comments on this. It was something we tried different. Thank you, I'm done now, for real.
No problem. Okay, up next we have Parks Use Policy Draft.
So the board will recall through some discussion with our village attorney, Jess Bugby, board decided you wanted to see a draft from Jesse on a policy for the use of Lincoln and Maple Parks. So he has finished that draft. You've got about 6 pages, I believe, in here on the draft, or 5 actually. And it's here for your review, your perusal. Don't have to make a decision about it this evening, but wanted to get it in front of you at least, and hear any discussion that the board has about it. So there's a lot of different areas that are addressed in here, including the types of permits required, going through the application process, criteria for the approval of an application, different types of insurance that would be required, a lot of different stuff in here. As I said, five pages total in this proposed policy. So happy to hear any comments or feedback that you guys would like to give to Jesse, and I can pass that on to him.
Do we really need to include an estimate of the anticipated attendance? 'Cause that could be really hard with something like Christmas festival where it could be hundreds or.
Yeah, I think that's really up to you guys. If you don't feel it's necessary, I mean, it's your policy. I would.
Like how with the Dairy Festival, estimate how many people
Right.
are gonna be there.
Well, they're exempt.
10,000 people.
That?
They're
Like it or
exempt.
leave it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for something like that, I think it's kind of, he probably put it in there just to, as I can see how it might be nice to know sometimes, or are we gonna have, 30 people in there, or are we gonna have 150 people in there?
Right.
But I think that's up to you guys as to whether you want a requirement like that to stay in the policy.
He drafted this up, or is it existing from a different municipality?
My understanding is he looked at a number of different municipalities in the state that have similar kind of public park policies, and he kind of cut and pasted from a few different ones to try and find, information that seemed relevant to our situation being in the downtown area here.
So,
One other thing I point out to you guys that you may or may not want in here, but we don't typically charge an application fee right now, but as you can see, as you read through here, he's got an application fee of $50.
I did see that.
So that's something if you're good with that, then we should keep it in there, but I'm just pointing that out as something different. And we don't typically do that now. You have the option to do it, but at least in the time that I've been here, I don't think the board has ever actually charged an application fee to anyone. I know one time the board asked for a donation, and you left the donation wide open to the applicant to determine, what they thought was a fair donation.
Did you get a donation?
And you did get a donation from that person, yeah.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't.
Yeah, they did send a donation, yeah. But you left it, totally wide open as to what
I
they
figured
thought
they
was
would.
fair. But that's the only time I can remember, ever asking anybody for any kind of money to use the park.
These are generally community things.
yeah, I don't think 50,
I'm not sure if we should, I don't know what everybody else.
not that much at least.
Charging.
No, I don't think so, especially being public
Yeah,
place, but I can see there should be something maybe for the whole application process, but $50 is really a lot, I think.
yeah.
I like that whole donation thing because you get a big event that they think is worth a lot and then maybe they'll donate more, or if you get somebody that can't afford it, or
Donations are,
Or there's- they're not there for their own
We
gain,
appreciate
so, right, yeah. Something like that, rather than,
I don't think there should be a charge.
no.
So I'm hearing take out the application fee.
Yeah,
Because
I
most
would.
of that stuff would be for the benefit of the community.
Right.
A lot of it is.
Okay.
Where would the money go to? The donation?
Yeah.
Well, it would just go back into the general fund,
Uh,
general fund revenues.
what do you guys think?
I don't think we should.
Take it out, okay. Another thing that I'll point out that is pretty different from what we have now is, he has also put in here that, and the application must be received no less than 30 days prior to the event. And as you guys know, sometimes we don't get the applications until just a few days before the event, sometimes only maybe 3 or 4 days before the event. Which is fine, if we can accommodate, we try to accommodate, you can't always, but we usually try to accommodate. So I'm just pointing that out as that would be another pretty big change if we're really gonna ask everybody to have the application in 30 days before their event, period, no exceptions, then.
We could
Just
always
pointing that
override
out
that
to you
too,
guys.
though.
Yeah, it's your policy, you could, if you chose to do that.
Could what?
Could always override it. We've done that in the past, I think, a few times.
Yeah, it might be a little harder with this, depending on what you guys want to do with it. I know that our attorney's plan is, although we're calling this a policy, he would like to see this adopted as though it were an ordinance. So once it becomes an ordinance, that's a little tougher, then it's actually law.
Right.
It's not just,
Yeah.
well, this is what we traditionally do, this is what we prefer. Once it's an ordinance, then, then that's actually a law. That's what,
Anybody's gonna do anything in the park, I mean, they're gonna, not gonna wait till 2-3 weeks before to organize it,
well, you might be surprised. I mean,
We've seen it.
Yeah, well, we got one today. We got one that came in right at your meeting, so.
I mean, do we need a time frame?
Well, the only downside to that is if they say they have an event scheduled for this month on the 30th. And if they come in with a permit, we don't have a meeting between now and then, so we can't approve it. So then the permit.
So it
couldn't go
should be
through.
like they should.
Yeah, I mean at least
If you
before a
want
meeting.
to make sure that it's a chance to
Right.
get before the meeting. But
I'm
requirement.
just, and you guys can think about it if you want to. I'm just pointing that out as, another part of this that would be very different than the way we handle things with the park right now.
Right. So he's thinking to adopt this as an ordinance.
Yeah, that's what he said to me, that that's what he's envisioning, to make this, a really legitimate document, something that, we would have as a tool if we ever got into a litigation situation.
That's what I was thinking.
Right. That would be the best way to handle it, and that's what he's recommending, is that you don't adopt this just as a policy, a guideline to follow, but you adopt it as an actual ordinance.
Shouldn't have to be, but it's probably,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Right. Anybody else seeing anything that catches their eye?
Like, what if somebody wanted to do like a ongoing every Saturday or something? Would that be like a permit for each time, or? I don't really see it.
I don't recall seeing something that spoke to that.
Oh yeah, right.
Say.
The day and hours, which.
Do you see it?
Yeah, it's right on the front page, letter C for section 2.
Section 2.
Letter C. I think the only one that doesn't write specific dates is the town band. They just say every Tuesday from
It won't involve.
Labor Day or Memorial Day to Labor Day. I think they're the only one, but I may be wrong. Everyone else uses specific dates and times. Which I guess is specific enough every
Yeah,
Tuesday. Yeah.
Where, I'm still not seeing that. Where do you see that?
First page,
Right.
C.
It just says the day and hours, but it doesn't specify whether it could or couldn't be, like a repeating date. It just says to specify the day and hours.
Didn't we have the farmer's market there? Didn't they were weekly through the summer?
Yeah, but yes, they were weekly through the summer and fall, and then they stopped. I think their last day was like the end of October or something like that. But yeah, they would do, when the farmer's market was around, they were out every Wednesday and Saturday, if I'm
I
remembering
think that
right.
was a pretty decent thing,
Yeah. But it had a start and a stop.
Yeah.
So they would open, whenever the weather got good, whatever, first week of May, and then they would stop the end of October.
Should we include the trustees along with the village manager on that?
Section G.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we can add that. Board of Trustees. So are you saying you would like to see something that defined a start and stop date? Or,
No, that'd probably be in the,
because I think this does leave it wide open. It just says to define the day and hours, but it doesn't say So if somebody put, I wanna be there, you know, whatever, Wednesday and Saturday forever, they've defined the day and hour.
So don't say day, say date. The date and hours.
Yeah, so my question is, are you asking that there be something that define specifically like a start and end point in the application? Or are you okay with the way that's set up, that it could be open-ended?
I don't think it should be open-ended.
I think we can keep it for a use that the park was intended for. I mean,
Right.
you know,
Right, but so I think everyone else on their applications, they'll say, you know, Memorial Day through Labor Day.
Mhm.
That's a start and a stop.
Mhm.
So if somebody just comes in with an open-ended, I want to be there Saturday at 10 to noon, then that can be forever.
yeah.
So if they say 10 to noon from Memorial Day to Labor Day, then you have to start and stop. But I think that should be included as well.
So you wanna see it defined start and end date?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Because if that's not important,
Yeah.
but the estimate of anticipated attendance is, then yeah, we should definitely do that.
I use the farmer's market, but that was a local thing. You know, it might not have been from Enosburg, but I mean, the locals,
Yeah.
you know, which,
All right, so we have 30-day before a hard start and stop date, and then the $50 thing.
Did you guys make a decision on the 30 days? Were you okay with that for the moment, or do you know you want that to stay or go?
I think you're gonna have some kind of a,
Yeah, 30 may be a little long though, I think.
Shouldn't 15 be more practical?
I think, yeah, 15, because that would always give us an opportunity to have a meeting before whenever their event is. If it's 15 days before or after.
or 21 days, and you, I don't matter, I guess.
You wanna do 15? I think that sounds better. 31's kind of far out.
Yeah.
Especially if we're gonna do an ordinance thing about it, then I think we're gonna have to shorten that up. So, 15 good, yeah? Yeah,
Okay, 15?
But if we get it less than 15 days, but there's still a meeting in there.
What's that?
right.
Still,
Well, that would be kinda hard though. Well,
like, is it,
Well, you meet every 2 weeks, so every 14 days, unless there's a month that has 5 Tuesdays in it. And so 2 or 3 times a year, there's always a month that has 5 Tuesdays in it. And when that happens, then you're out to 3 weeks in between
Well, that's why I
meetings.
mentioned 21 days,
But-
I just thought it'd be,
Right, but this could still apply even,
yeah.
you know, if you had a month with 5 Tuesdays. I mean, still 15 days, you're not, you know, you're still giving them the 15 days. I will let you know, I think it will be difficult even with 15 days for some people to meet that. Good, seriously.
that's what I mean, is that a hard, like, if they,
it will be if we adopt this as an ordinance. So right now, we're just talking about it as a policy, but if we do turn it into an actual park law, then
well, maybe that should not be in there, but if they don't get it in timely, then they're out of luck.
right.
Well, that's,
Like, to,
Perhaps rather than a specified number of days, you could put some verbiage that says that it must be approved at a regular board meeting prior to the event. That way, if the board meeting is 2 days before the event and they've got the application in time for the board meeting, you approve it, you've met your objective is to see it.
Right.
And approve it.
that sounds good to me.
I'm just worried about people dropping a application the day of a meeting that wouldn't be on the agenda and, but
See, if you're gonna
Yeah,
go to
I
an
think people
ordinance,
like to tend to procrastinate as much as they can.
Yeah.
if you're gonna go to an ordinance,
Properly
you
warned for a
gotta have
regular.
enforcement too.
board
Right,
meeting.
there you go, yeah, actually, yeah. What?
If it's gonna go to an ordinance, you gotta have and be able to enforce certain regulations there.
So we just say must be submitted on time for a properly warned,
Regular. board
trustee, regular trustee meeting instead of the 30 days. So I mean, that's kinda, what is it now? Or is it just whenever meeting?
Right now, there really isn't, we don't have an official policy on the parks, which is why you guys, our attorney suggested doing this. We have a number of ordinances that do regulate the park individually. For example, we have a curfew on the park, that's an ordinance. We have an alcohol use ordinance for the park, that's an ordinance. And then we have a number of policies that are really more historical in nature. They're not written, but they're historical policies in the way in which the board has allowed people to use the park over time, but nothing in writing regarding those. So because of that, because it's kind of a hodgepodge of things that, have guided the board's public use of the park, our attorney is suggesting we do something comprehensive that, officially outlines all of these different issues and puts them together in one solid policy that is, in writing, and you can explain to anyone from the public that, has a question or comes in and wants to ask for usage of the park. Right now, we don't really have that. We can sort of talk to them about it. We can show them some of the ordinances we have regulating them, but they're all different pieces of law. This would be one policy, comprehensive, all put together.
Yeah, there's a time ordinance too, right? Like, not dawn to dusk, is it?
Well, that's our curfew. We have an existing ordinance right now that is a curfew on the park.
And that's
so
not included in here.
That's not included in here.
So if we are
This
to
would be in addition to
Right,
that.
right, okay. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the curfew on the park is from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
So if we were to put this as an ordinance, would we want to wrap all those other ordinances up in here, just?
Well, I don't think so,
Or-
because they're still valid. There's not a lot of them, but there's several. And those will remain valid, but this would be in addition to those. And I think the intent is to give some flesh to some of the more historical kinds of policies, things that were never in writing, but were just, this is the way the village has always done it. For example, even, our application, this one-page application that you guys see now from people that want to use either the bandstand or the park. This was never something that was officially blessed by the board or anything. This is just something staff put together, both of these forms, because we had nothing. When I first came here, there was nothing. There was no procedure, there was no form to ask, excuse me, got a bit of a cold, my voice keeps breaking. There was no, form to have people fill out to even get basic information from them about, what they were doing and how we could contact them to, talk with them if something went wrong or we needed to discuss something about, what they were doing with their event on the park. So we, many years ago, we, the staff, just created these forms, so we would have something, at least, basic information from people that we could bring to you guys. But the board actually never endorsed those. And it's worked. I mean, I think, the forms have worked fine. We may have to tinker with the forms, though, if you guys adopt, an actual policy and make it an ordinance, to make them fit what is inside of this ordinance, whatever you end up officially adopting, because it may be slightly different than what's in these permits that we're using now. But, we can do that, once you guys do an adoption process. And the adoption process itself would, if you do end up making it an actual ordinance, is, you would warn it at a regular board meeting. Then 10 days after actually adopting the ordinance, we would have to have it published in a newspaper. And then there is, I believe it's a 44-day comment period from the public. So the public would have 44 days to review the proposed ordinance, and if there was opposition to it, they would have to get, I think it's a 10% of the registered voters within the village would have to sign a petition to challenge that ordinance adoption. If that occurred, then the board would have to set a date for a special vote, a special public vote done by Australian ballot, at which people would then vote as to whether they wanted to approve or deny the proposed ordinance. So in a nutshell, that's the basic ordinance procedure. If it is not challenged, then on the 60th day after adoption, it becomes law, it becomes an ordinance. So it is, it's a procedure. It's something, you would go through under statute. And so, you want to be sure the language in here is what you want it to be.
So on page 4, section 6, subsection B, it talks about people posting or fixing any placard, bill notice, or any other paper. Does that apply to banners? Like, I know, like Harvest Fest had a banner up. There's Town Band always hangs one. Every now and then Lions will put stuff up.
Yeah, so that's something to think about, because you're right, under section B, or section 6, letter B, it does say no person shall post or affix any placard, bill notice, or any other paper upon any structure, fence, or enclosure in any public park, pleasure driveway, or boulevard.
Is this worded right for this?
Well, it could be. So I think he may have pasted that section out of something.
Right, we don't need that.
Where I think it could apply is, like, we have 4 streets around the park.
Right.
4 public streets. So it could apply in that area, that if a person doesn't have the right to, put signs or placards out on, any of the streets surrounding the park either.
Well, it seems.
But it's a little awkward, I agree.
Yeah, it seems to suggest that it's any public park or any of our drives. And this really only applies to Maple and Lincoln.
Yeah, so we could say.
Just, pop a question mark next to that, run it by him again, and see if we can.
Lincoln Park
get something.
And Maple Park rather than any park, any public park. And I can ask him, I think that's where the where it would be relative regarding the driveway or boulevard section is talking about the public streets around it. But I agree, it sounds a little
Yeah.
awkward. I can just,
Maybe that one could also, like C has without approval. Maybe they can put paper up with approval.
What's that?
Like B says they can never put paper anywhere, but C talks about something else and it says without prior approval. So maybe
Right, so I think what
You
Steve
could
is
have-
talking about is, well, it doesn't apply for the Lions, but when they put up poles and stuff, I would assume that's what that,
yeah, it says building
Like
structure,
flowers.
facility,
Right.
so, you know, basically anything, so it would include the bandstand, the benches in the park, any of the sign posts that are in the park, the fence, I mean, basically any structure.
yeah. So like just putting flyers up, but then maybe can add without prior approval to that.
Yeah, it does say that, it says without the prior written approval of the village is prohibited.
you mean to be?
I mean to be, add
Oh, to
that
be,
part to be, that last part in C to be.
okay.
They don't go through zoning to get those banners up, do they?
No, and so regarding, I mean, on other parts of the park, it's just been kind of done. I can't recall a situation where the trustees ever prohibited someone from putting up a, you know, or sign or something in the park for a specific event, as long as they took it down after the event was over. But we have kind of a unique situation with the fence around the Doughboy. A long time ago, way before I was here, it was decided that because the American Legion actually owned the Doughboy statue and the fence surrounds the Doughboy statue, that the village would defer any requests to, you know, put signs or banners on the fence to the Legion. And in that way, then, you know, the Legion, because the fence is in front of the Doughboy, if there was something the Legion took offense to or something, then they could sort of monitor and control that, I guess. So that's a little different, and now that you brought that up, that you don't see anything written in here regarding that historical agreement that the trustees and the Legion have with each other. So maybe we should suggest, you know, getting something specific, if you want to keep that relationship, if you want to keep that in place, then we should probably specifically outline that traditional use or way to permit banners on the fence in the park.
Like if there's a blood drawing or something like that, they put a banner on that fence. That,
Yeah, there's a lot of different
Yeah.
events through the course of the year that, you know, put banners and signs up on that fence, but as I said, historically, those have not come to the village. There was an agreement a long time ago that was made with the Legion that because the fence, you know, was in front of the Doughboy and protected the Doughboy, that the village would allow the Legion to decide, you know, what kinds of placards or signs they would allow on the fence.
John, did you have something?
I was just thinking, listening to you talk about the fence, if what is being talked about happens with that fence in general, and something different goes up, would you even want anything on the fence?
Yeah, I guess that'd be something the board would have to,
Well, that would be done
Consider.
anyway, so, they have to-
but if you kept the arrangement as is, then it would still be up to the Legion to decide.
Right. I think we probably should include something about, at least
I think the Legion should be.
named, the Legion should be named
That's
in
their-
association with their fence and their monument. Right, is their monument? Our monument? Their monument.
It's theirs.
Yeah, okay. So while we're on the whole banner topic, I remember a couple of years ago, there was something about, banners between the buildings on Main Street isn't allowed.
Oh, yeah.
Is that an ordinance or?
You mean over the street?
Yeah,
I don't think
All over the street.
I don't think it was ever adopted as an ordinance. What I know of it, and what I was told when I first came here was, back in the late 90s, there was a banner that was allowed to go up on Main Street, across Main Street, and tied to, two ends of a building, or two buildings on each side of Main Street. And as it happened, there was apparently a really hard windstorm that day. The banner was ripped out of its attachments to the buildings, and when it came down, apparently it was very heavy banner. I wasn't here then. I just was told about this, and when it came down, it pulled a section of the electrical lines along Main Street out, and there was a short all the way down Main Street. It was actually, what it would describe to me was actually very serious, where you had live wires laying down almost the whole length of Main Street from around where Lincoln Park is, all the way down to here, all the way down to this four-way intersection.
That's not good.
No, and the linemen actually, as this was occurring, as the lines were coming down, they were actually afraid that it might short out the substation, which is, right in back of us here at 42 Village Drive. And if that had occurred, that would have been extremely expensive to repair. And so after that happened, the village trustees decided that they would no longer allow banners to be attached across Main Street. They don't have a problem with, putting them in other places, but I was told when I came here, if anybody ever asks you this, just tell them, no, that's our decision and that's the reason why. That, you're right, that did come up like 3 or 4 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it.
There was a request from, I think it was from the Franklin Grand Isle County Tobacco Prevention Coalition, that they were looking at putting up banners around town, and they had asked, was it possible to put one up across Main Street, and I had given her that explanation as to why the village doesn't allow that anymore. And she seemed fine with it. I mean, she didn't make an issue. That was Amy Brewer from the Tobacco Coalition. So they just put up banners in different locations.
And anywhere we got utility, you don't want people putting up banners.
they look nice though. They look nice.
Yeah.
I think it's all just in how they're put out. Like in
Yeah,
St.
'cause people have them
Right.
in other places.
specific structure, like in their streetscape.
Yeah.
That the banners are affixed to, they're not attached to buildings or to electrical poles or anything, there's
Yeah.
specific.
But they've got a lot of underground utility now too. Their lines are underground in like the basic part of their down. I'm not saying everywhere, but along Main Street, a lot of it's underground now.
Maybe someday.
All right, it'd be nice to see one with all the Dairy Day floats and all that. But maybe someday. So it says in here too, section 7, letter E, that
Section 7.
yeah, the permittee provides a certificate of insurance. Is that required right now?
Right now, this is one of these areas that is, it's kind of open-ended. There have been times when the board has required insurance certificates, and there have been times when the board has not made any requirements. The only people that have a requirement by law for insurance is the Lions Club for the Dairy Festival. We have a Dairy Festival, Dairy Festival ordinance. And within that ordinance, it does require the Lions Club to carry liability insurance, $1 million liability insurance, to hold the Dairy Festival in the village. But that's the only place where there's actually a policy or a law in writing regarding insurance coverage on parks. So it really has varied over time. In some cases, the Board of Trustees have requested that certain parties hold insurance coverage for the events that they're holding, and in some cases, the board has made no requirement at all. So it's been inconsistent.
I'm not sure that I think that should be mandatory, especially if it's a really small
Well, it
event.
just says when they provide it. It has to be $1 million. It doesn't say it's required, when it's required.
No, I think it is applied though to everybody. I mean, that's how I read it. When you read it comprehensively through the
When a
whole thing,
permittee
it says when a
provides.
permittee provides a certificate of insurance pursuant to this policy, the permittee shall provide a comprehensive general liability insurance with minimum limits of liability for bodily injury in the amount of $1 million for each occurrence, and minimum limits of liability for property damage in the amount of $1 million for each occurrence. The village shall be named insured additionally under the policy. It says shall, not may.
Right.
Additional coverage may be requested when deemed necessary due to the risks posed by the permitted activity. So it gives you guys an option to actually even ask for more if you want more, but it says the minimum is $1 million.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys think, but if there was a small event there, they would still be required to have $1 million minimum policy. I think that would.
That's hard to do with some of
Right.
the local stuff, the real, you know.
Like what if, like the movie in the park, what do you need insurance for that for? Just, you know, shouldn't have to have $1 million policy for that. Smaller events like that, or town band, you know what I mean? Just,
Well, even
Yeah, probably for those things, maybe the only way you could do it, I mean, some of those are recreation department, so it's a town of Enosburg event. Maybe the town could cover, well, they certainly have liability coverage, just like we have liability coverage. You know, maybe for those recreational department events, the town could provide that liability coverage. But, you know, it's certainly worth discussing if you guys are not comfortable with that $1 million amount. You know, if you feel like there should be some wiggle room, good. My interpretation when I read this is that is not for negotiation, it's a requirement.
Well, I think it would be a permittee must provide a certificate and the rest of it. If it was required for everyone, but it says when they provide.
Right.
yeah, I don't think that I think they're telling whoever's applying that they need to have a
Right.
minimum of $1,000 or $1 million liability.
Right, and it's saying the village shall be named insured additionally under the policy. And then goes on to say additional coverage may be requested, additional. So it's saying this is the minimum.
Yeah,
But
if they're even
additional
required to
coverage may be
provide that.
requested when deemed necessary due to the risks posed by the permitted activity.
Maybe
When
that
I
could be,
read that,
could be
I-
more clear to what is required.
So do you think that everyone should have to have $1 million?
No, I didn't think that said that, but.
Right. Well, we can stiffen up the wording, but that is if we want to require everyone to have $1 million policy. I don't know if it should be up to the Board of Trustees' discretion for that. Because then that could kind of put us in a weird position. I don't know. I think we should ask
Maybe say
Jesse
when
about it.
required, the minimum is this, or something.
Shauna, your insurance, do you have any comments on that?
Ooh, good point.
On having the,
$1 million?
having it, or how easy it is to get it.
Both.
So depending on what the event is, the person holding it can get a special event policy, and depending on what it, you know, what it is, anywhere between $150 to, you know, $300, $400, $500, depending on what they're doing.
But here it says the minimum is $1 million.
That's pretty standard, honestly.
Yeah,
That's standard?
yeah, $1 million's not very much to
Yeah.
liability.
That's definitely standard.
And you're thinking between $150 to $300?
Well, it really depends. It depends on where you get it. It depends on what the event is, and what the exposures are. So it's hard to say.
Right. I think for now, what may be a good idea to do is ask people if they do have insurance, and if so, how much when they do fill out the application form. That way we can gauge what is going on as far as who is insured and who isn't. And while we ask Jesse about this, kind of maybe keep tabs on it. If that makes sense? Like just to get an idea for if people are insured or not.
So you want us to poll past applicants and ask them whether they have insurance coverage or not?
I don't know.
Is that what it?
What
But
kind of applicants do you get? I mean, are you talking about people that,
Oh, well, we get EBA,
right? which
we
has-
get some from the town's recreation department. We've had some private people that have come in and wanted to do yoga, for example, on the park, or exercise programs.
The library.
Yeah, the town library, once or twice a year. Yeah, there's also a mobile bookmobile.
I mean, most of those things that you're kind of.
Concerts, we get some church concerts we've had requests for.
Champlain Chevrolet?
I think most of
Yeah.
those are gonna already be.
So it's a wide gambit.
So,
We
yeah.
get, people from the private sector that are just, one-man shows asking for something, and we get, private companies, we get other municipalities like the town of Enosburg and our own local nonprofits like EBA or Enosburg Initiative, so it's a wide variety.
Right. I mean, I think, even like for a farmer's market, for the vendors that are at the farmer's market, I think you'd find people would ask them for insurance. If somebody was private, like I remember somebody wanted a wedding there or something a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we've had those too, we've had
Somebody that
weddings.
has a wedding somewhere at a venue, they're gonna be required to have
Right.
insurance.
What about
No,
people
we haven't-
handing out brochures?
We've let them do it without it.
Say what?
People handing out brochures in the park.
Oh,
If they need a permit, would they need insurance?
I guess it would be just handing out the brochures, Churches, people like that probably have insurance.
Yeah,
Okay.
the
I don't think
churches,
it's a
the churches are not
farm.
supposed to be, yeah.
So that's pretty standard then. Alright.
And as far as the limit, I mean, that's definitely for a liability policy. Very common.
Okay.
Good thing you're here.
So do you wanna just stick a pin in that one and think about it for a little bit, or?
Yeah, or just run it by him and see what he thinks about
What he
that.
means by that, or
Yeah.
what exactly?
The,
You mean to clarify the
Yeah,
wordage?
clarify.
okay, so just tighten up the language to make it look like absolutely it's required? Is that what you're saying?
If we want it required.
I think this should be it.
Right, but
further
to tighten it
discussion.
up, he's gotta
Yeah.
know, do you want it or do you
Kinda
not
doesn't-
want it?
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking, do you wanna just stick a pin in that one for now and bring it up next
Yeah,
meeting or
yeah.
something?
And then run the other stuff by
I
him.
hear different views, that's all. I partly hear you don't want it, but then I partly hear, well, maybe there's a good reason to have it.
If you'd like to have it more clear, just have him clarify it a little bit and then we can always come back to it and
Clarify to keep it.
clarify the
Okay.
language, yes, and then we can always have it scratched
All right, good night.
or amended again. 'Cause I don't think there's any rush with this.
No, I don't think you guys should approve it till you're
Yeah, no.
totally happy with it.
Yeah. Then the other things you mentioned. Has any members of the staff, wanted to have anything included in here?
I don't think any other members of the staff have looked at this.
Okay. Does anybody else see anything that they wanna get looked at, revised,
It's not a
eliminated?
bad idea. You wanna take a look at that now? Or
Maybe have Gary brush
see
it
what
over.
you think, if there's something else you wanna add in that?
Maybe even Ken, because he maintains.
Okay.
So we all good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
Actually, wait. So it says, the proposed activity will conflict with something else already scheduled. But what if they could both be scheduled?
Right, so that's I think that was in the section where it said that the board of trustees or the village manager could
Okay.
deny it if
Okay.
there's a scheduling conflict.
I remember seeing it somewhere, but I can't find it.
Yeah, I saw that too. Or we can conditionally approve it, provided that they don't interfere with whoever else is scheduled that day. Alright, anybody else have any other questions, or? You wanna move on, or?
We read this over, if there's something, we can bring it up next week.
Yeah,
Or 2
and
weeks.
Jesse will probably have another revised draft.
Yeah, I'll give him your feedback about this and ask him to, make revisions based on your comments. And then when I've got that back, we'll reschedule it back on a board meeting again for your review.
Sound good?
Yeah, good.
Alright, let's move on to village office holiday schedule.
Yeah, so this is more just a piece of housekeeping. This is something we do every year. There's some items around the holidays and the schedule for the office that we always check in with the board of trustees about to make sure this is what your intent is, what you want to have happen around the holidays. So the first thing is the day after Thanksgiving. You guys know that is not a holiday under our personnel policy. However, historically, the Board of Trustees has always allowed the office to be closed the day after Thanksgiving as long as all the employees agreed to take their own vacation time off. So it's not a holiday that's given to them, but if everybody agrees, okay, I'm gonna take my own day off, then the board has allowed the day after Thanksgiving to close the office. Is that still the intent?
As long as that's been working.
Yeah, totally up to you guys, which is why every year we come and ask this. This has been a tradition though, since long before I was here. But every year the board is asked if it's okay, because it is your right to say no if you don't want that as well. But this seems to have been the tradition here, because it's not a holiday that's given to the employees under the personnel policy. But the board has agreed if everyone will take their own vacation time, they'll let the offices be closed.
I don't
Still
see an
okay?
issue with that.
I have no problem with that.
Okay, great.
Except for Matt.
Except for Matt, right?
Thank you, Robert.
What if Matt doesn't want to take a vacation?
And then also, traditionally, the village has had an employee Christmas luncheon, and normally we've done this the last working day before Christmas. So this year, that would be the 24th. And what has normally been done is we would close the offices early at noon that day. So this year that would be the 24th. of December. And then we have a lunch that's catered here for the employees. Board members, of course, are welcome too. And then after the lunch is over, everyone goes home and you start your Christmas. Is that also the intent the board would like to do this year?
I don't have any problem.
Okay.
Was
So it's
Peter?
been working all right.
It's usually the Dairy Center we have.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. What's that,
I
guy?
say, as long as it's been working,
Yeah, that's, again, that's one that's
no problem.
been going on longer than I've been here, so it's, it's always seemed to have worked out okay.
Probably by the Dairy Center all the way.
What day is
As far as I know.
What day is the holiday on this year, Christmas?
The day of the week,
I think it's two.
I think Christmas is on a Wednesday this year,
Yeah, it's right in the middle of the week. It's gonna mess everything up.
so the
Christmas
24th.
and New Year's.
Oh, yeah.
24th would be a Tuesday then. Let me just check here, guy. Yeah, Christmas is a Wednesday, so the 24th would be a Tuesday. Yeah. And then the last question I had around the holidays and village schedules is the 22nd, as I just mentioned, is on a Tuesday. It's the 4th Tuesday of December, which would be your normally scheduled second meeting in December. And I'm assuming nobody wants to meet on Christmas Eve. Is that correct?
Not after the lunch.
Maybe Sam does.
Is there a chimney I can crawl in?
Right after happy hour.
Right. So is it safe to say then we're gonna cancel the board meeting on the 24th? And what we've typically done, this doesn't happen every year, but it happens quite a bit just because of, how Christmas falls during the month. What we have normally done where we've had a situation like that, where the second meeting was, either on Christmas Eve or Christmas or very close to it, and the board has canceled the meeting, is we've just kind of left it open where, if there is something pressing
Someone's
that
gotta be
comes
action
up,
on.
right, that the board really needs to take some action on, then we would call a special meeting for another day during the week, sometime maybe later in the week. But if not, then we just have canceled that second meeting in December. Does that sound like an okay
Sounds
plan? Okay. All right, and that was it. I just wanted to get those kind of housekeeping items out in front of you, and so we can make some decisions about them. And we'll let staff know about the day after Thanksgiving and the Christmas luncheon,
Except for that.
except for Matt.
All right, up next we have manager's report.
So first thing, wanted to update you guys about the broadband issue that I've mentioned to you guys before and under manager's report. Our state legislature is requested that the Department of Public Service do a study looking into mandating broadband service by electric utilities in Vermont. We are an electric utility in Vermont, so we would be affected by this as well. And I wanted to let you know that the state of Vermont is continuing with that study. We have filled out a 23-page survey. It wasn't just Enosburg Falls, it was given to all of the electric utilities in Vermont. But we did complete that last week. We filled out a 23-page survey that was sent to us by the Department of Public Service, and we have returned it to them regarding, the survey itself is specific to our service territory and issues that we as the electric utility, the DU, sees that, maybe the state doesn't see regarding this new requirement if it does come to pass. And so remember, the legislature set a deadline for this study to be completed by the the DPS by January of 2020. So it's not too far away when this study has to be done by DPS and a recommendation sent to our legislature as to whether they believe this is a good idea, something that is plausible, something that is feasible and can or should be done or not. So, and my thanks to Matt Miner, because it was Matt that did the bulk of the work in answering the survey questions and getting all the answers together for DPS. So thank you, Matt, for doing that work. Also wanted to let you guys know about a NEPA effort. NEPA, remember, is Northeast Public Power Association, also a public power organization that Village of Enosburg Falls is a member of. I'm a board of director on NEPA as well, representing Vermont on that board, along with 3 other managers of electric utilities in the state. And I thought I would just let you guys know about a NEPA project endeavor that has been taking place. This is just a tidbit of information on this. It's being called Light Up Navajo, and it's an effort being sponsored by NEPA to provide electricity to parts of the Navajo Nation, which is located in the southwestern United States, that doesn't have electricity or does not have electricity. So there are large sections of the Navajo reservation, most of which is located in the northeastern corner of Arizona, but parts of it go also into Utah and New Mexico as well. And many of these people that live there have never had electricity, still don't. And so there's an effort to try and assist these folks and get electricity all across the Navajo reservation. And NEPA has stepped up to the plate and provided linemen and equipment to send down to the Navajo reservation to help establish electric utility usage in areas of the reservation that have never had it. So in 2019, NEPA was able to send line crews from 4 different utilities that are members of NEPA. So these are all also public power organizations. So Littleton, Paxton, Sterling, and West Boylston, all from Massachusetts. So these are municipally owned electric utilities in Massachusetts, all sent line crews down to the Navajo reservation last year for this effort. Another effort is being coordinated for 2020 through NEPA, sort of a Light Up Navajo Part 2, if you will. And to date, NEPA has received 22 members that have committed to this endeavor in 2020, which is scheduled to take place in April. So I bring this up just as another great way that public power adds value to the communities that they serve and continues to make the United States a strong and caring place to be. And just, I want you guys to be aware of these other things that are going on in the electric utility world outside of Enosburg Falls. But we're a part of that. We're a part of all of that. Everything that's happening at VEPSA, everything that is happening at NEPA, even APPA, which we're also a member of, that's American Public Power Association. We are members of all those groups. We participate in those activities. And I do feel strongly about public power in Vermont and in the United States. And I do think public power makes the United States a stronger place to be. So, get off my soapbox on that. Just wanted to point that out to you guys, little information. Wanted to also let you know that we're getting into budgeting season now. Staff will be working on getting department figures together very soon. Related to this, I wanted to make you aware that we've received notice from our health provider, which is IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, that we will receive an 8.3% increase in our premiums for 2020 for our healthcare costs. So this increase will be included in your preliminary budgets, which are due to you December 30th. But wanted to give you a heads up on that. We have received notification from them that we'll be looking at an 8.3% increase in health premiums this year.
Did they say why?
They didn't give a specific reason, but
It's been
One.
about 3 years since they've had an increase, and it's just market pressure.
yeah, we've actually been very fortunate. If you look at what's going on in the state healthcare system, they begin much larger increases than we have through IBEW.
And that health insurance only applies to the electric workers?
No, it covers all of our employees, even though we are not all union members. Some of the people, even though they're not actually electrical workers, are actually still members of the union, like our public works department guys, our wastewater department guys. Even though they're not electrical workers, they are still part of the union. But there are other employees that are not part of the union at all. Mostly that's your administrative staff, that's your folks that are working in the office. We are not union employees. So,
Just thought the name of the provider was a little misleading.
yeah, right. But when the Village of Enosburg Falls agreed to become part of IBEW's insurance program, part of that condition was that they would allow non-union members to also receive the same health care and benefits provided by IBEW. The village did not want to get in a situation where some employees were getting, one set of health care and benefits package provided, by this person, excuse me, and then a very different package provided to a different group of employees that, perhaps was not equal to that same type of benefits coverage. So the village told IBEW from the beginning when we decided to go to their insurance package that they had to cover non-union employees as well. They agreed to do that. And then lastly, well, actually not lastly, but the next thing is I wanted to bring you guys' attention to an invitation that's on the back of the manager's report here. This is from the Enosburg Initiative. They're requesting board participation at they're calling it a, sort of an everything meeting, all the groups. A meeting of the people who meet is sort of the way they've dubbed this. It will be on November 9th beginning at 9 a.m. at the Enosburg High School Library. Potluck lunch would follow the meeting. They did this last year as well, where they just invited, all the groups from Enosburg that meet to discuss things, whether it's Enosburg's Business Association, the Enosburg Falls Economic Development Corporation, Board of Trustees, the Select Board, the Recreation Department, whoever. If you're a group and you're meeting about issues in Enosburg, you're invited to go to this. So just wanted to point that out to you guys. That meeting is November 9th if you would like to attend. And then one final thing I have is I got an email this morning from Jim Cameron, also from the Enosburg Initiative. And you guys recall your last meeting on October 8th, Jim was in here. And during the Enosburg Initiative report, he requested of the trustees whether you were okay with him inviting some zoning officials from the city of St. Albans to come up and talk with you about different policies that they have regarding things like grass that's too long, condition of buildings, stuff like that. So in his email, he said he does have some people lined up to come and talk with you guys. They would like to come up at your next meeting, which is the 22nd. No, I'm sorry, the 12th, not 22nd. November 12th would be your next meeting. And so he would like you guys to confirm that he will be here on the 12th with some officials from the city of St. Albans to discuss these kind of building code, health issue type of things. But he's also asking another question in his email, and that is, he is suggesting that given the people that would sort of be overseeing these things, if the board did adopt additional ordinances regarding things like length of grass or, ability to demolish buildings, given certain conditions, things of that nature, a lot of this would probably be overseen by town officials, meaning like the health officer or the zoning administrator. So he is asking whether you guys want to call a special joint meeting of the town select board for the November 12th meeting.
We're almost due for one, aren't we? We usually have one around this time of year.
It's up to you guys. We usually have 2 a year.
Yeah.
We've actually had 2 already, but they were both in the spring. If you guys want to have another, I think we had one in like April and one in May. So it's up to you guys though. If you want to call a special joint meeting, if so, then are there other topics that you would want to discuss with the select board, or just that one item?
If I had to guess, I would just say that the town isn't gonna be interested in adopting any ordinances for the village. But I do think it may be a good idea to have at least the health official there.
Or we could do that, or we could just, to my knowledge, it's still Larry
Yeah, I think it is
Jarvis.
Larry,
We could just ask Larry if he wants to come down as, chair of the select board and the health officer
Yeah. maybe a good
and sit in on the meeting.
idea. What do you guys think?
That sounds good.
I wouldn't wanna get everyone together just to talk about a village issue, If anything else comes up, yeah, maybe, have you reached out to them, or has he reached out?
I wanted to talk to you guys first to see if that was something you were interested in or
Some
not.
of those regulations.
If you just want to have the health officer down, then there's no need to have a joint meeting.
Right.
You would call a joint meeting if you want to talk with the whole select board about something.
Probably just the health guy.
Have you gotten in touch with the town?
No, I wanted to talk to you guys first before I said anything to them about it.
If they don't have anything pressing, you guys, can you think of anything that we need to have a joint meeting about?
As long as what we've been talking about, grass and stuff like that, I don't think in the town.
In the town, they bail it.
Yeah,
They bail it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, if they don't have an agenda of stuff, then I can't think of anything. Yeah, if you wanna invite Larry.
Okay, so just invite Larry to come down
Yep.
and let him know he'd be playing a dual role as both chairman of the select board and health officer. Okay. Alrighty, and that's it for manager's report.
Alright, well, thank you, John. Anybody got any other business? Matt, anything? No other business? No.
We adjourn.
Second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. We don't have executives tonight.